Greetings and welcome to another episode of Super Speak Sundays. I'm your host, James the Orator. As you know, this is a platform where we just take ordinary people who have gone to do some extraordinary things. How's everybody doing? Another beautiful Sunday in the neighborhood. We want to thank you all again for your support. I know every time we come on, we thank you, but you know what? This show wouldn't be possible if you were not supporting what we're doing. So again, we want to continue to encourage you to visit our YouTube page and also share and like the video. Again, you don't have to do this alone. Let other people know. It's a group activity. All right. So good. Hey, you know what? We want to thank particularly. There's one person who I talk to just about every time after we have the show. And her name is Levita Moore. She's one of my classmates from Lew Wallace High School, Gary, Indiana. She consistently shares the videos, calls, and I call her just to get feedback. And so, Levita, if you're out there listening, hey, we want to thank you for just continuing to support our efforts and making sure that we stay on point. All right. Hey, we have today someone who, and he doesn't know this, but this is someone. When I first met this gentleman, he was just inspiring. He was someone who I felt was on point, and so I had to get him on. We tried to do it some time ago, but now is the time. And again, if you know anything about timing is always on time. And so I'm going to read his bio, and I think that you'll be impressed. Jamal Smith currently serves as the Director of Strategic Partnerships at Indiana University Health. IU Health is the largest and most comprehensive healthcare system in the state of Indiana. Mr. Smith is tasked with helping to strategically align the guiding principles of IU Health with the growing needs of our cities and communities. In conjunction with his role at IU Health, Mr. Smith is founder of the Lead Change Project, a 501c3 organization. It's a sports management-based nonprofit that partners with urban schools and school districts to engage more youth in sports and extracurricular activities. Prior to founding the Lead Change Project, Jamal served the state of Indiana as executive director of the Indiana Civil Rights Commission, transitioning from his role as Governor Mitch Daniels' senior advisor. Over the past 20 years, Jamal's professional experience have included government affairs, marketing and business development, event management, as well as strategic community engagement, organizational marketing plans. And he's led recruitment campaigns resulting in increases of more than 300%. In addition, Jamal has overseen more than 12 international sporting events, including the selection announcement of the 2008 Olympic synchronized swimming team. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome our guest today, Mr. Jamal Smith. Mr. Smith.
Yes, sir. How we doing this afternoon?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us today on Super Speak Sundays. I was telling my guest prior to you coming in that I was anticipating this show. As I mentioned, I was highly impressed with you when we first met, and it's just a pleasure to have you here today.
No, I appreciate you. I've always appreciated your energy, and listening to that intro, like it just brings back the moment when we first connected, and reminded me of how contagious that energy is. And then after you reading that bio, I know I had somebody put it together for me. I'm like, man, who is that you read?
Right. Well, hey, customarily, before we get started into the meat and potatoes of our show, we usually present a quote, and we're going to present the quote, and we're going to ask you to respond based on your initial assessment.
Yes, sir.
So the quote says, "A mentor empowers a person to see a possible future and believe it can be obtained." That's from Sean Hitchcock. What are your thoughts?
I can dig it. Mentors, I think, play a critical role in people's lives. I think people serve as mentors oftentimes and don't realize they're being mentors. And I think people are being mentored oftentimes when they don't realize they're being mentored. But it's important. But you got to open yourself up to it. And to be honest, to be a mentor, true mentor, takes some time and some commitment. And to allow yourself to be mentored takes some humility and some self-reflection, which I think is an extremely mature character trait that not many people possess, is the ability to truly self-assess and hold yourself accountable for the things that you know yourself you've fallen short in.
Sure, I agree. You know, as you look at the our current state of affairs in this country we live in, we know that young men than ever before need to have mentors and people who show concern and care for them. Talk a little bit about your personal journey, and I know there's so many layers to to your life experience. But talk about the people who were instrumental in your life and what that means for our country today.
Man, it has been a journey. My wife and I talk about this frequently. I really do thank God, not just for where I am. So I do feel like, I'm blessed. My family's blessed. We're blessed. But I also thank God for that journey and the hills and valleys and peaks and valleys that I've had to go through to get here. And at each point, to the question that you're asking, there's been a multitude of people who have either directly or indirectly inspired or mentored me along the way. The first of which I'd argue was my mother, who was who kind of ran the house more like a drill sergeant, raising my brother and myself on her own.
Right.
Unfortunately, common statistic, single mom, kind of in that space and doing what she needed to do to get things done. But she would always say, at least as we got older, how no one gives you a handbook on parenting, right? And
That's
so
right.
she was young when she had me. I was the oldest, and she would often tell me, she said, when I had you, I didn't know what to do.
Right.
But looking around at my family, my nieces, my nephews, people in the neighborhood, she would say, I knew what not to do though. And
Right.
so, I just praise God for her having what my grandmother would consider just common sense.
Right. Oh,
Common
yeah.
sense enough to know how and when to pivot and to put herself and her young boys at the time, despite the circumstance, put her and herself and her young boys in the best position possible.
Absolutely. Now you grew up in the state of Ohio, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm a Buckeye.
Okay.
Actually, a Buckeye from Dayton, Ohio.
Dayton,
It's
Ohio.
funny
Okay.
when I got to Indiana, a lot of people talk real bad about cities like Gary, right?
Right. That's my hometown.
I know, right? And at the time, I was dating a young lady in Gary. I had spent a lot of time in Gary. And people say, "Oh, you go to Gary." Gary felt more like home than anything because it was so
Yes.
reminiscent of Dayton.
Right.
Just in the way, just the cadence and the people and just the way it flows. But yeah, I am by nature a Buck. I said born and raised in Ohio, but I grew up in Indy, if that makes sense.
Okay. Okay. So when you think about your experience growing up with a single mom, and we know that there are a lot of young men and young women who grew up in single parent homes, what was it? Because I heard you say your mom was a drill sergeant, but what was it that kept you away from the pitfalls that we see so many of our young people fall into today?
Man, great question. Yeah, I just attribute that to three things.
Okay.
One is I truly believe it was God's will for me to do and be and experience the things that I experienced. Two is my mother, as I mentioned before, who just kind of ran the house. I mean, she had very limited education at the time, and she would even admit at the time, very limited life experience at the time.
Sure.
But it was a non-negotiable. Whether she was right or wrong, it was here is the way and here is the expectation.
Absolutely.
And then the third was my my involvement in sports, in particular basketball.
Sure.
Well, it ultimately ended up being basketball. Coming up though, I played everything. Mom had a rule in the house. So at the time, she didn't even have her GED.
Okay.
So she was making minimum wage, which I think back then was what, $5.25 an hour or something crazy.
$3.35. I can remember.
Yeah. So you know what I mean. So she's making ends meet there. So she's working. I never remember her growing up working less than two 2 jobs, right? Sometimes more. But so one of the rules in the house was every season we had to play something. So she didn't pick it, but we had to play something: basketball, football, baseball, whatever it is, whatever was being offered, we had to play it.
Right.
What I later found out was for her, when she's going to work at 5 a.m. and she's not getting home until midnight, us playing sports served as kind of a built-in babysitter.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Getting out of school at 3 o'clock, man, at the time, I'm helping, say I'm 10 years old and I'm helping raise my little brother who's 5. Us getting home at 3 o'clock with all that time left in the day, that's
not a good look. Not a good
look at all, right? And we were latchkey kids. She would pin the key to me. So it's funny. I tell this story as a speech I gave called "The Power of Expectation," and in it I speak about how that experience with my mother kind of shaped and molded my expectations for life, the expectations I put on my children, as well as the expectations I put on just my circle of people around me, whether it's people I'm mentoring or people I work with.
Sure.
But I tell the story about her waking me up at 10 years old, and she's waking me up at 4 a.m. on her way to work, and me, walking her. We would walk down a little stairs. We stay in a little 2-bedroom apartment. Walk down the stairs, and I would watch. I would stand in the screen door and watch my mother walk off into the night, right? Because we didn't have a car, so she's walking to the bus stop, and as we're walking, she's walking down the stairs. She's basically going through the litany of expectations for the day.
That's right.
Get your brother together, iron his clothes. Here's what's in the refrigerator. I need you to, fix breakfast, make sure he eats. I need you to walk him over to school, sign him in. I'm 10, right? Sign him in.
Oh yeah.
Right. Get yourself together, make sure your clothes are ironed. And she's walking me through this day. And when you get home, right, and we had a cadence, I would come home after school, get out at 3, right? I come home, I have to pick up my brother, bring him in, and she had a system. She would call the house. There were no cell phones back then, right?
That's right.
Call the house, she'd let the phone ring once, and then she'd hang up, and she'd call right back. That's how I knew it was her.
Okay.
Because I wasn't supposed to answer the phone for anybody
That's
else.
right. Or open that door.
Open that door for anybody else,
That's
right? So she'd call, how was your day? How's your brother? Here's what we need to do, right? Pack him a little something to eat. You guys head back to school. So then I would pack us back up, and we would walk to the public bus stop to catch the bus to go back to the school so I can go to my practice, whatever that practice was, right?
Wow.
And I set my baby brother up in the corner with his homework and with his snacks or whatever, and I would go work out. I'd go practice.
Okay.
For 2 hours or whatnot, 2-3 hours, and then, pack him back up, right? Get his stuff, go back to the bus stop. We catch the bus all the way back home. So I'm getting home now. It's 7, 8 o'clock. Walk in the door, and like clockwork, let's say 8:30, that phone would ring one time, it stopped ringing. She called back. I knew it was her. Pick up the phone. How y'all doing? How's your brother? Did he get his homework done? Here's what's in the fridge. I need you to cook dinner. So I'm cooking dinner, 10, 11 years old,
Wow.
And she said, hey, get him in the bed by 9 o'clock. So I had to get him in, and then I would sit and do my homework, and I would wait for her to get in probably about midnight or whatever. And then we start that process all over again.
Wow.
But, those lessons from her in that moment, and later on we had the conversation, right? She would, and I was blessed enough to have some mild successes as an athlete. And in Ohio, they have like these awards, as they do everywhere, right?
Yeah.
And every once in a while, she missed games. Like I don't know how she pulled it off. I mean, talk about Superwoman. She would be in attendance at most of my games, but she missed a couple of critical ones. And I remember real insensitive, like asking her why she missed. You know how when you get to college,
oh yeah,
you get to college, you get a little too smart for your own good. There's that moment where you know everything, right?
Right. Oh yeah. Or sometimes even a little earlier.
A little early, yeah. Well, funny as teenagers, and I know you got one too, right? Teenagers,
Oh, yeah.
are just horrible little people, man. And so they try you, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
they know everything
That's right.
already, and you know nothing, and you getting on their nerves as if they can eat
Right.
without you, for crying out loud, right? So,
Right.
but then you get to college and you feel learned, as they say.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You want to impart some of your wisdom. And I remember having run the numbers because most of the family, man, had the whole social welfare piece was, we were accustomed to it, man, food stamps, and welfare. And so, but my mom, she never really took it for the most part. And I remember coming back and running the numbers because she's making, I don't know, $5 an hour minimum wage. And I'm like, if I'm running these numbers correctly, technically, you could have really just stayed at the crib.
Yeah.
I've been gone.
Right.
And I'll never forget, she looks at me and with so much conviction in her voice. And that's when one of the first times she had told me, she goes, look, when I had you, I'll admit I didn't know what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
She says, but I knew what not to do, and I knew what I didn't want. And she says, so it was important to me that you saw somebody get up and go to work every day.
That's it.
And that rang true. So then she said, man, blank your little basketball game.
Yeah.
Right.
I got
so,
it. Mm-hmm.
It was, those life lessons, man. You talk about who really inspired or I think the first person, kind of going back to bring the full circle back to your original question. I say the first person that really influenced me along that path was her, was mom, for a number of reasons. And I had a number of coaches, some teachers. As an athlete, a lot of my mentors coming up were coaches, guys who were willing to pour into me as men, because my bio, my father wasn't around, so
right.
As a grown man, willing to check me when I needed to be checked.
Absolutely.
And the ones who knew how to go ahead.
No, I said it sounds like your mom did a great job with you, and
Absolutely.
sometimes some of us are forced into adulthood or taking on responsibilities that we're not ready for. But somehow, your mom puts you in a position where you're responsible. You're responsible for your little brother, and so after high school, you move on, and you have this level of maturity that you probably found out other people did not have. And so, what did that mean for you in terms of, getting recruited? I heard you mention that you played basketball on a collegiate level. What did that mean in terms of your recruitment process and being able to communicate effectively and understand, the system as it related to this new found level of participating in sports?
That's a great question. You know what? I didn't have it all figured out. In fact, I'm not even really sure I communicated well then. I've always been told I had an old soul. And I think that was in part because of I did have to grow up a little faster than most kids do. And mom, she expected it, right? Like,
that's right.
She expected it. But I don't think I communicated well. In fact, my journey to college was interesting when I had a couple scholarships on the table, but so I had kind of embraced this idea of being the young man of the house and taking in that responsibility and not wanting to leave mom at the time. So the notion of leaving her just in local schools didn't really recruit me much. And so I remember the summer after my senior year, I took a job at General Motors.
Okay.
It's the worst job and the best professional experience I've ever had.
Absolutely. Right.
Worst job ever though. They had it was like a cattle call, man. Like there was tons of people who came down and we were standing in this line and they were just kind of handing out random jobs.
Yeah.
Luck of the draw, the job you get, right?
Wow.
Had a buddy of mine, he was in line with me. In fact, he's the one that told me about it. I went down there with him. And his job, he sat in the chair, and these little gadgets came by, and he had to spin them. And if it spun, he just put it back on the conveyor belt, and it kept going.
Wow!
And if it didn't spin, he had a trash can next to him. He threw it in the trash. He did that for 8 hours. That was it, right?
Widgets.
Yeah. My luck, I get when I get to the front of the line, they hand me some long rubber gloves and an orange jumpsuit. I'm like, man, this looked like something way different than them widgets.
Yeah.
Come to find out, I had the shocks and struts department. So they took me to my station, and they would wheel out this huge barrel of shocks and struts in a tub of oil. My job was to reach down into that bucket, pull those shocks and struts out, and hang them on the line as the conveyor belt went by.
Wow.
And I wasn't supposed to, I can't miss any hooks. I got to hit each hook as it came by.
Wow.
Each one weighed probably about 10 pounds, I guess, which I'm in great shape. Really wasn't a big deal until you're doing that for like 7 straight hours, bro. Like that was
I can imagine.
That was something else. And them old heads who had been working in that factory for 20, 30 years, man, you miss them hooks. They hit that buzzer, that alarm goes off, man, and they start calling you anything but a child of God.
Oh yeah, man. They're trying to get out there early. They're trying to get productivity and all that. You messed up the money.
You messing up the money. Wow. So I did that, man. I hated that job, and I was every week I was quitting. Look, I'm quitting. This is my last week. And then the foreman back then, because it wasn't no direct deposit. Well, I don't know if they had it or not, but I didn't have direct deposit.
Right.
They brought by your physical check. And I'm a young pup, man, 17, 18 years old. And again, by the grace of God, I didn't have any outside responsibilities. It was just me and my mom and my brother, right?
Sure,
I took it. You know, and throughout the week, they'd ask you, because I had to check in. My clock started like 5, 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And it's not like some jobs you walk in and you can kind of get settled. 6 in the morning, that buzzer and that goes off and that line starts. I got to be ready to roll with them rubber gloves on, ready to hit.
Oh yeah, you got to be ready to go. Right.
Go.
When you think about that experience of working at General Motors, and you look at how you have matriculated in your career has been very, very fruitful. You know, where you've had the opportunity to represent the state of Indiana, working with Governor Mitch Daniels, and then your current role where you are doing some work with Indiana University Health. Talk about the parallel between transitioning from that experience to what you're doing now. What did you learn doing that to help you to say, I want to be at the pinnacle of my existence, my gift? You know, how were you able to tap into that gift, and who were some people who helped you along the way?
Well, yeah, it's a great question. That job taught me that I didn't want to do that job no more. That's what that lesson was.
Right.
And I was literally quitting every week, and they would bring by you know what? You start at 6. I'm getting off at like 2 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
The foreman would walk by and say, "Hey, you want to put in 4 more hours?" And I would think to myself, "It's 2 in the afternoon, ain't nothing going on. Sure, I'll do 4 more." Right. Yeah. But that's time and a half.
That's right.
So by the time that week ended up, and I'm clearing close to $1,000 a week. Mm-hmm. So at 17, 18 years old, that's good money. Mm-hmm. With no responsibilities, right? It's all whatever I choose. I do. But what I learned was I'd get off and I'd have no energy left.
Wow.
And I was no good to anything or anybody else. And I just go fall asleep and wake up at 4 in the morning and get up and
do it all over again.
Same thing, yeah.
Treadmill of life.
Couldn't do it, man. And so I knew then for me, whatever I did for a living, I needed to work. I wanted to work with my mind more than I did manual labor.
Sure.
Any manual labor I wanted to do because I just wanted to do it. And so I ended up going to school because I was not going to go. I was not going to take the scholarship. That was the point of that story is,
oh, wow.
I took that job. I was thinking, this is what I'm going to do. Stay home, take care of mom, help out around the house. You know, college is going to have to wait.
Right.
Luckily for me, I was calling around. Most of the scholarships had been given away. Mm-hmm. And finally picked up, one of the coaches picked up and said, "Boy, you called me in the nick of time."
Yeah.
Okay. Can you be on an airplane at 9 in the morning? I said, "Yes, sir." Mm-hmm. And that's how I took it. And then college opened my eyes up to a lot of work because I'd never really been out of Ohio then. I'd never been out of Jackson. So just going to college, I think, and I tell the young people now, college is amazing. And it's not so much the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s that makes college so important.
Right.
It's the networking experience that is the value in it, right? The people you meet, the things that you see, which for many of us who come from where I come from, It's the first time you're exposed to those types of things. It's the first time you're exposed to, I give you another story. I started out majoring in pre-med, biology pre-med, I never forget, with no consideration for the fact that I hate science.
Oh, man.
And I had no interest in blood or doing any kind of work. But you want to know why I chose to be a doctor? Heathcliff Huxtable.
Okay.
I didn't know much about professions.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
I knew doctor, lawyer, maybe teacher, and then
fireman, policeman.
I didn't really have any experience. Well, that was never even I'll be honest, we didn't even rock with law.
Yeah.
Where I come from,
Right.
man, like,
back in the day, you had officer friendly coming into the school, so that was
Man, we didn't. Where I come from,
I
that
get
was
it.
a welcome sight.
Yeah.
And the attorneys, most of the attorneys was defending the dope boys, and I was like, that's not really not my cup of tea either. So the only remaining one was, and the teachers always seemed stressed.
Right.
So I was like, well, doctor, I'll be a doctor.
Yeah.
Bro, I know I had never worked so hard for a D- in my life.
Ooh, yeah.
It was tough.
Oh, I get it. I get
it. Basketball scholarship. Midway through that first semester, they called me in and told me, we got to put you on academic probation.
Mm-hmm.
I said, what does that mean? They said, well, the GPA right now is below our expectation.
Yeah.
And if by the end of the semester, if you haven't brought it up to expectation, then you are in jeopardy of losing your scholarship.
Wow.
My world fell apart.
Oh, I'm sure.
No, I had no means to pay for school any other way. And that was it. And I remember calling my mother, never forget this, because you had the calling card.
Yeah.
Calling card.
Yeah.
Call mom. And when you remember them calling cards you would only have so many minutes. But every phone call, even if the person didn't answer, that took minutes away.
Oh, yeah. Right? Oh, yeah.
You only had, say, if I had 10 minutes on my card, if somebody's voicemail picked up, I lost 2 minutes right there.
That's right. That's right.
I called mom from my calling card. I got through my brief, I said, hey, mom, academic probation. She said, what does that mean? I told her. She hung up on me.
Wow. You lost some minutes.
Lost minutes, and she wouldn't answer my phone call no more either. She was done.
So you knew at this point that you had to figure it out. You had to figure it out.
I had to figure it out.
And so many times in life, we're faced with situations where we may deem it to be difficult, and we have to come up with a solution. We have to come up with something that's going to take us from where we are to where we have to be. And I tell people all the time, waking up, having an opportunity to wake up every day gives us a fresh start to make a different decision. And so it sounds like you made a different decision. I want to transition to the Lead Change Project, because I know that's a big part of what you do. You have definitely shown that you invested in young people and their success. Talk a little bit about why you started this project and what are some of the components that people need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of goes back to the original question, some of the things that shaped and molded, and that third pillar, which is me playing ball. I just believe being active, young people playing sports, it just provides so many intangible benefits, right? Mm-hmm. Leadership skills, time management, problem solving skills.
Absolutely.
And there's all kind of data that shows when kids participate, they do better academically.
That's right.
They do better socially. Their confidence and self-esteem is better, etc. But at the time when I started it, I was volunteering as a coach in the school district, inner city school district here, man. Just coach a little basketball.
Yeah.
And I was shocked by the number of kids who weren't playing. I was over at one of the largest schools in the inner city, the largest school in the inner city school district at the time. So they had over 2,000 kids. I want to say close to 4,000 kids then.
Okay.
And we had tryouts for the boys basketball team, freshman, JV, and varsity.
Yeah.
12 kids showed up total.
Wow.
So we thought it was a mistake. Like, did we get the information out? Like,
yeah.
kids not know about it. They're like, no, we got it out.
Wow.
Kids just weren't interested in coming out. And it's not that they weren't hooping, because they go to the park.
Oh yeah.
Kids still hooping, or they go to the rec center still. Kids. So the way we fielded the team, ironically, is we went around and I had like little flyers passed out. I was challenging.
Mhm.
I was challenging boys to one-on-one contests to say, if you come beat Coach Smith, buy you a pair of Jordans.
Wow.
Come through.
So you were pretty confident that that you wouldn't have any takers.
No, they came through.
Oh, they did. How many pair of Jordans? How many pair of Jordans you buy?
And none. I was beating the hell out of kids as they came through. I couldn't go home and tell my old lady I was about to spend $300 on
Right,
sneakers.
right.
But we ended up filling the team, and that's how we got rocking, man. And once we got them in, found out like collectively the GPAs were real low at the time.
Sure.
So it's a great head coach, man, that I was working with, and he shared the vision. So we started doing some tutoring and just really mentoring and talking to kids about more than just basketball. We started committing to community service and took the boys out to do some service projects.
Absolutely.
And was just really, really rocking with it, man. GPAs went up and had a heck of a time. And at the end of the day, we actually ended up winning the state championship, which was icing on the cake. So we was super excited about that piece. And then from there, my thought process is, if this is happening in the largest school in the district, what's happening at smaller schools, right?
Absolutely.
And then, so that's, that was the birth of the Lead Change Project. And the goal was to take kind of those principles and implement them into every school in the district to hopefully get more kids to just participate. It ballooned into what we found out once we got into it was the reason why the kids don't participate has a lot to do with things that are out of their control. There's some policies that are in place that disproportionately impact our kids, in particular our kids of color or kids from lower socioeconomic environments.
Sure.
The personnel is not suited to administer athletics.
Okay.
Most inner city school districts are so beholden to the teachers union that it just gives them that right of refusal. So a teacher will be given the right to be an athletic director or even a coach, and he or she and they may not be the most qualified person for that job, but because they hold the teacher's license, they get it. Well, as a result, the experience that the kids are being provided is subpar. And if you don't think the kids recognize that, you're a fool. And the kids told us, we surveyed them, the kids told us. Number 2 on their list as to why they weren't participating was the coaches and the ADs don't know what they're talking about, and they don't care about us.
Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy. Yeah. It's interesting you talk about school sports. I remember when I was in school back in the day, there was always a basketball team, but now it appears that you have this this duality with what we call school sports, and then you have this AAU circuit. Everybody wants to play AAU basketball. Everybody wants to play travel basketball. And so the kids who are not prepared, or they are not at the level to play travel or AAU, they end up missing out because nobody's putting any energy back into the schools. And so what would you tell a school administrator or even a superintendent about the importance of even having these programs, even though we have this circuit of AAU out here?
Man, this is what we've been doing with the Lead Change Project. We spent the first 2 years literally just telling that story about how important it was to make sure that opportunity existed. We would tell them just that. Honestly, man, if made king for a day and running the school district, I would mandate participation. Sure. It would be part of the school day. Sure. Like you would do your in-classroom instruction for the first part of the day. And then right when they would typically get out of school at 3:00, that's your second half of the day. And you'd have to pick a sport or an extracurricular activity, chess club. If it's not basketball, football, baseball, track, or baseball, something like that, then debate, dance, art, music, like something that helps hold and capture that creativity.
Absolutely.
And let them get that energy out, man. There's a lot of talented, wonderfully talented young people out there.
Absolutely.
With outlet. And that is going to come out. The problem is it comes out in dysfunctional ways often because they don't have a platform to really tell their story, or really speak their truth, man, or talk their pain, talk that talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if it's not kind of harnessed in a productive way, they'll figure out a way to get it out, but it's usually at the demise of the environment, the community, or the parents or their family or something like that.
Absolutely. Last question. So there are some people who are listening to this right now. There's a mother who has a son or a daughter, and they are really trying to get a hold of them. You have the Lead Change Project. Talk about what you would do at this point if they were experiencing these challenges and they want to get involved with the Lead Change Project.
As a parent,
As a
so
parent,
Lead Change Project, we work with the schools. We try to help support schools. We try to help and advise on policy that impacts the ability for kids to participate. For example, most inner city schools will have policy that prohibits a kid from playing before they're in like the fourth grade, right?
Right.
And for most people, they say, well, that makes sense. I argue against that. I always tell a story. It's another story I tell in the speech that I give, where I was 10 years old the first time one of the dope boys, the corner boys, put a pack in my pocket. I was on the way to the park to go hoop. I knew him. He knew me. And I knew the person he needed me to drop it off to. And he slid me toward him. He said, hey, drop this off to so-and-so on your way to the park.
Right.
I'm like, cool, don't trip.
Yeah.
So I take it, drop, do the deed, then I go hoop. End of the day, I go home. Luckily for me, I had a mother who checked everything that came in the house.
That's it. That's it.
I ain't give it to you. It don't belong.
Don't bring it here. That's right.
So where you get this from? And when I told her, she literally marched me back down to the corner, gave dude the business, and basically threatened him like, yo, don't ever give my son nothing that I didn't have you give him, right? So I tell that story at 10, and I go, we got 10-year-old third graders right now.
That's
and
right.
If you don't think they're going home to some of these same environments, then you're foolish, man. Like, there is no reason why we can't figure out a way to administer these opportunities to kids as long as they can run, jump, and play.
That's right. That's right.
And do it in a way that's fun so that they learn and they're gaining all these experiences. And we should do so that they develop that cadence. There's also research that talks about active kids becomes active adults.
That's right.
And if you just want to just have the health and wellness conversation, I think getting kids engaged early is critical in that discussion as well. There's so many vehicles and avenues we can go that route. But bringing to directly answer your question, what I would tell, first of all, I'd say parenting is one of the hardest things anyone would ever do with a family. As a dad yourself, I know you know that.
Absolutely.
So I would say, keep at it, because understand that you're not in it by yourself and you're not the only one who feels that it's difficult. But there are, no matter what city you're in, what state or what city you're in, there are opportunities to have your kid engaged, if not at the school. And the school should be providing more opportunities.
Right.
But there are all kind of rec leagues and all kind of extracurricular engaging opportunities for young people to get engaged. And I'd also encourage them to think outside of what would be considered the traditional sports, your basketball.
That's right.
Because a number of other sports that are just thirsty for kids to come out and participate that don't cost a lot.
Right.
And because the participation is so low right now, the people administering it will do everything that they can to provide that opportunity for you and your young person.
Absolutely. Hey, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Those are some powerful words. I definitely agree that there needs to be more done in our schools because, again, our children spend more time in school than they do in their own homes. And so the school environment is definitely important. Brother Smith, we want to thank you today for joining us here at Super Speak Sundays.
Man, thanks for having me.
It's been a true pleasure just to sit down and chop it up and just kind of hear, your journey. It's very motivating. I'm sure our listeners will definitely be encouraged by what you've shared today.
Well, I appreciate you for having me. Appreciate you for giving me the opportunity to even have the conversation, man. And look forward to seeing and listening to some of the dope shows that you have, in the weeks to come, man. So I'm just glad I had a chance to be a part of it. I can say I've been there.
There you go. To Super Speak Sundays again. Thank you again. We'll talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. Peace.
All right. Take care. All right, folks. That's Brother Smith sharing his journey. Think about what if we all decided to share our journey? Who would be enriched? Who would be motivated by our story? And sometimes we don't share our story because we're ashamed or we might be embarrassed by the things that we've gone through. But until we face our challenges face to face, we stay stuck. David Green used to say, stay stuck on stupid parked and drive. You have a story to tell. Release it and let people know that they can do it too. You've been listening to Super Speak Sundays with your host, James the Orator. Again, don't forget to visit our YouTube page, subscribe, share, comment, and subscribe again. Until next time, we want you to know we love you, and we'll talk to you.